coming to you following Colorado's fourth spring practice, and we were just chatting, Brian. You've been on quite the whirlwind here recently covering the CU women's basketball team. You were out in Manhattan, Kansas, out in Albany, and got to see Caitlin Clark play in person. And but now it's kind of back into spring ball mode here.
Yeah, it's been quite the whirlwind ever since we finished our last practice where we had access. I literally took off driving from Manhattan that day, and so it hasn't felt like much of a break for me, but certainly for the football team it has been. But good to be back in football mode, and now it is 4 straight weeks of football that we got. And today was a good day getting the linebackers, and it's good to get right back in football with one of the toughest groups on the team, right? Get the linebackers, and Andre Hart certainly get your energy going, in a morning, and talking to Trevor Woods, Levante Bentley. So good to be back with football.
Bentley was one of the guys I was really impressed with. As last season went along, he got better, and there was a time early in the season when Juju Mitchell came in and started to play, and Bentley wasn't playing a whole lot there for a few weeks stretch, and I think a lot of guys would have kind of sulked or gotten upset, but Levante Bentley put his head down, went to work, and it was kind of overshadowed because the offensive line struggles were getting all the attention during that losing streak. Yeah. But there were guys defensively that got better, and that group overall got a little bit better, and Bentley was a big part of the reason why.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his final numbers from the end of last year, and they're pretty impressive with the TFLs and the sacks that he got last year, and he really did. I remember back, I don't know if it was spring or in the fall, I think it was fall, where Andre Hart had told us that he came in one day and without telling the guys, he switched up the depth chart and put Bentley to second team. He said he had his best practice that day. And so, he did that because he was trying to, let's find out how these guys respond to those things. Levante Bentley responded with his best practice. And so when you look at that, maybe it was no surprise that Levante took to getting benched early last season and made himself better from that, because he came back. When he got back in the lineup, he was one of their best defensive players, and certainly wasn't perfect, and they had their faults as a defense. But if you look at just individually, he was pretty impressive the second half of last year, and I think that he is one of those guys coming into this year that I look at as that's a leader on this defense. That's a guy you have to look to.
In chatting with Trevor Woods, he said, hey, I was still meeting with the safeties and then going out on Saturday and playing linebacker. So it's hard to grade too much of what he did when he switched positions. He said he lost a little bit of weight recently. He's about 210. It sounds like he wants to be about 220 going into the season. In this new day and age of college football, 220 is actually probably enough to play linebacker. And so it's interesting to see the progression of him. He's proven that he's a top playmaker in this program. Even back to his true freshman season, he was a guy that when he was out there, he made plays, and last season came up big in some big moments. Does moving him closer to the line of scrimmage take away some of that playmaking ability, though, from him?
Yeah, we're going to find out. I think that if he's 210, maybe a little bit, but I like him better if he's going to get to a 220. He finished the year on the injured list, right? I mean, he didn't play the last game or two, I think it was, and I don't know if it was because he was playing linebacker, but it is interesting to hear that he wasn't really in the linebacker meeting room last season, that he would just show up on game day. Trevor, you got to play a linebacker today. So I'm curious to see what he does differently, working with linebackers and learning the linebacker position a little bit more than he did last year. I thought it was interesting, Andre Hart, when he was asked, I think you asked him about the transition for Trevor, what was the thought process, and he said, look, Trevor's a guy that we didn't want to lose him, and so we talked to him about what kind of role he could have because we did not want to lose him. And so it's clear, as you mentioned, Trevor's been a playmaker, and so they need him in this defense. I don't know what role he's going to have, but he's going to be on the field in some capacity.
They can't lose him. He's a link to the past around here.
Like the only link to the past.
Yeah. So he's a guy that I think if you give him a full offseason and say, go learn linebacker, he's going to be a pretty good linebacker at the end of the day. Yeah. But you don't have a lot of depth at that position, at least not proven depth, guys that have played a lot of reps at this level. Jaylen Wester is a guy that Coach Hart was asked about, and he said he's kind of running right behind Trevor Woods in Levante Bentley. Yeah. He comes in from FAU with his brother, Levante Wester, and Pro Football Focus really graded out him well against the run last year.
Yeah, he's one of those guys I'm intrigued about because there's got to be somebody that steps up next to Levante Bentley. And if it's Trevor Woods, is it Wester? Brendan Gant was not talked about today, but is he a guy that can do that? There's some young guys who are in this program. Kofi Taylor Barracks. I'm curious how those guys are doing. But Wester is a guy, like to your point, that has played and was graded out well. And so you look at him and say that could be one of those guys. And so to me, he's one of the more intriguing guys. When we actually get to see a practice, or maybe it's the spring game, he's one of those guys I want to look at and see how does he look.
Just going to mention this name one more time, but they did have DJ Lundy on board, and that was going to be a huge piece for that linebackers group. And it seemed like Florida State was starting to lose a lot of guys to the portal, and their alumni base really came up together with the NIL money, and were able to pull some of those guys back from the portal, and Lundy was one of them. So now it's kind of put pressure on this staff going into that spring transfer window to still have to fill that need.
Yeah, and Andre Hart talked about that. He said that, they like the guys they have, but he said Coach Prime always wants to get better. He said we are looking at pieces to see what we can add, and they've got some people in mind. And so I expect, he didn't go out and say we're going to add somebody, but I would expect they're going to add a linebacker too, wouldn't you? I mean, I just think that's one of those spots that when I look at what they have coming even in the summer, that's just one of those spots I look at and say that's not a very deep group. I mean, that's the one spot, especially on defense, I look at and say I think they need to add there.
That's been really the big difference with Colorado football, is that they've come into a lot of seasons with a decent starting lineup, and then depth issues show themselves throughout the season. And there was a little bit of that last year, not quite as much as we had seen under previous coaching staffs here. But, yeah, it's challenging because in this portal era, you pull in a bunch of guys and you might lose some more that want to go play. And so you're kind of constantly having to reevaluate and almost be a little bit of a psychologist. And that was something that Coach Hart said about not wanting to lose Trevor Woods to the portal, is that you have to have those discussions now. Yeah. Whereas in the past it was my way or the highway. Now you've got to kind of have a little bit back and forth discussion with these guys.
Yeah, and frankly, last year they thought they had some pieces, and it wasn't even injuries that led to Trevor Woods getting in there. It was kind of ineffectiveness from guys. I mean, Brendan Gant did get injured last year, and Mitchell got suspended, but it was some other things like DeMoy Kennedy. He was talked about a ton last offseason, but didn't really pan out, and now he has left the program. And Marvin Ham was talked about, had a good start, but he wound up not playing a whole lot towards the end, and so I think they've got to hit on that position maybe a little bit better than they did last year. And maybe it's Trevor, maybe it's Wester, maybe Brendan Gant, steps up this year. Brendan, I thought, played well. He just didn't get on the field very much because he was hurt so much. But when he was in there, I think he made one start at, maybe it was ASU. I can't remember where he started, but he played well, then he got hurt again. And so, there are some intriguing pieces there.
Yeah, Brendan Gant's definitely a wild card in that group, but I think a position you're going to continue to see evolve as we go into the season. We do know the spring game is going to be on April 27th at 1 p.m. What was your reaction when you found out it was going to be televised on the Pac-12 network?
Well, they're still in the Pac-12 until August, and so obviously it's a tough time because that weekend is the NFL draft, and so ESPN's not really a factor there. Fox, from my understanding, didn't really have the option of picking it up, and so the Pac-12 network was really where it landed. And it's interesting to go from ESPN last year to Pac-12 network this year, but they're making up for it by doing a lot of things around it. You got the Lil Wayne concert. Trevor Woods let us know he already has his tickets.
That's the bummer, is we're going to have to be working after the spring game. We're not going to be able to hit up the concert.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, but we might have to go to that talent show because Trevor Woods talked about how he's got a talent of juggling flaming. What do you say? Flaming. What are those called? Swords? Not swords, no. But. I can't remember. Batons. Flaming batons, yeah. So, I'm hoping he gets in that talent show and juggles those. Because
if you're Coach Prime, are you letting him do that?
Yeah, if I want to see film first that shows that he can do it safely, and then I'll do it. But I think you let him get in there.
Is that really on his CU bio that he can juggle flaming baton?
I have zero idea, but they said it is. But I'm gonna have to go look at it. But I don't know if it was a joke or not. But I hope he does it.
It's got to be it for the Pac-12 network, though, right? This has got to be it. It's funny because I was out in Las Vegas covering the Pac-12 men's basketball tournament, and Ashley Adamson and the crew were right in front of where I was working, and they brought out the whole crew, and they were basically saying goodbye And then now Colorado spring game is going to be on the Pac-12
You know,
network.
and I've gotten to know Ashley a little bit over the years. She's actually from Denver, and you know, she was telling me the Pac-12 men's basketball tournament, that was the last thing on her schedule that she had to actually do. So we'll see if she's involved in that spring game or not. But yeah, that will be the last time the football team is on the Pac-12 network, because once we get to August, they're no longer in the Pac-12.
And hopefully Yogi Roth can make it out again. Though
Yeah.
Ashley and Yogi did a great job, and it was
Yeah.
never their fault.
Right.
All the issues with the Pac-12 network, and
Yeah.
even you heard about the production staff. There was a lot of talent in the Pac-12 network, but they just really weren't able to ever shine.
Yeah, the network itself, I liked. You know, I thought they did a lot of good things, but you know, to me, the final straw was when I was covering the women's basketball tournament in Vegas, you know, last month, and the media hotel was New York, New York. That's the media hotel, and the Pac-12 network was not available. They even sent out a link saying, "Here's the channel to get the Pac-12 network in the hotel." Well, it wasn't even available. So, you know, when it's not available in the hotels in Vegas, which is supposedly Pac-12, you know, central, that's where a lot of the championships are, that's a problem. And so that was kind of the epitome of the Pac-12. It's understandable why it's going away, but the network itself, the on-air product, I thought was pretty good.
And reasonable ticket prices, and it was getting expensive to come watch this football team play at Folsom Field last year because the demand was there. So this is a great opportunity for folks. It's general admission seating for the main part of the stadium. So you get there early enough, you can get a great seat in there. So fingers crossed. I mean, the weather on April 27th is always a crapshoot in Colorado.
Well, it was snowing here. We were sitting there wondering during warm-ups of the spring game last year, they're going to get this field cleared. They got it cleared right at the last minute. So I'm hoping for no snow this time. You know, we've had some sunny spring games. Let's get a sunny one this year.
All right. Again, that's 4 spring practices in the books. We'll be back with more analysis on Thursday.